Hey, welcome to Urban Legend Crypto. We're here to discuss current events, and today we have two special guests, and I'll have them introduce themselves right now.
Hi, my name is Maureen, and I am so thankful to be here today. A little bit about my background is I've been into crypto since my senior year of high school, so about maybe 5-6 years now. And then in the last 2 years, I've gotten into Sol NFTs.
Oh, wow. Those are interesting topics there. And today we also have our famous business broker, Jennifer Weinberg. Jennifer, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me. First, I want to say that. And Jennifer Weinberg, I've been in the real estate industry almost 24 years now. Crypto is very exciting. I'm definitely very involved with it and have been for years now. And I think the future is going to be very bright.
And you're right about that. And the famous Amos, Brett Jennings. Hey, Brett, what's up, buddy?
Vegas crypto agent, and I'm back on the scene.
You're back, Jack. All right. Well, today what we're going to talk about is what the heck is going on with ETFs that we have BlackRock getting involved with. And right now we're joined with Brett, and he's going to address a little bit about that right now.
So a lot of people think this might be a watershed moment for Bitcoin specifically, because what this would do with BlackRock getting approved for an ETF, which means it would be spot Bitcoin. So a lot of market manipulation in Bitcoin and in the crypto market in general are people being able to bet against the other side. So if you were to do any sort of, like, for example, right now, there's a few different stocks that involve cryptocurrency right now for Bitcoin. Grayscale is one of them that's involved that you can trade Bitcoin with right now. However, none of those are spot Bitcoin, which means that these people are Johnny-come-lately buying the Bitcoin. So you're basically buying an IOU. The difference between BlackRock having a spot ETF is that when people go to buy, they have to buy live right now price. So you're not buying Bitcoin and betting it's going to go up or betting it's going to go down. That's not allowed for the ETF, for the spot ETF. It's you basically are forced to have to buy the actual Bitcoin for the spot price it's at that moment. That takes away a lot of manipulation because of that fact.
I understand it is the ETF is a way for institutional investors to get involved with buying cryptocurrencies. In this case, what Brett was talking about, Bitcoin. And so now the risk factor is mitigated by a lot of different people. So what happens is if I have a like 401k, I could instruct my broker to be able to buy a certain percentage of that in high risk assets. And he will ask if that includes cryptocurrency. And if you say yes, then they have the ability to be able to buy things like Bitcoin.
Or Ethereum or something, yes.
Right. So probably the top 10 coins, yeah. Right? But for now, it'd probably be just Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I don't know if they'll do more, but they may, which would be wonderful.
Litecoin.
So the watershed moment that Brett was alluding to is the approval of the ETF, which many different companies have applied throughout the years. He had mentioned Grayscale. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Grayscale, but they ran into big problems because they weren't able to get an approval with the ETF. And so they were betting the bank on it, and they were leveraging out their Bitcoin. And then with Luna going under and all the different coins going under that they had hedged on, ran into major issues with that. But that being said, Brett, what do you think is going to happen with all of that?
Technology in general with cryptocurrency is being pushed overseas. And what I personally see is in the next year or two, we're going to have a change in administration. And I think more specifically, Gary Gensler, who is the head of the SEC, a lot of the way that he's been going about things with crypto is he's been trying to give it a death ticket for about a year or so now. And I think that you're going to have a change in Washington and people are going to get him out. Who's going to replace him? I don't know, but it's going to be someone that's a lot more pro-friendly when it comes to crypto. And once you start having a different sentiment and a different frame of mind with it, then you're going to allow a lot of these companies, even if we're talking about Coinbase or something like that, who have been trying for years to go about the regulation system that weren't allowed to. Now they're going to be able to allow to, they're going to encourage it, and they're going to set specific rules and regulations for it. So it's going to be about a year, maybe 2 years, but ultimately I think that America is going to be forced to have to pay attention and have to make regulation and have to work with crypto in some shape or form in order to continue forward and stay on top. So I see all those positive things happening for it.
What say you? Would you invest in a ETF if you had the choice on a 401k?
If I was a normal, like not normal, but like a everyday Joe, probably not. But with my experience, I would say yes, because it makes it all easy because it's all in one place.
Okay. How about you, Jen? Would you invest in something like that if it was offered on a retirement plan?
I think it would. I think everyone is, how do I want to say this? Cutting it short, where crypto is going to go and blockchain in the future. I think we might be, in my own opinion, maybe about 10 years out to really see some positive big changes. I would definitely encourage anyone to still put their money in and do what they can in anticipation of it blowing up in just a few years from now, hopefully.
Got it. Would you tell us a little bit about your journey? I know you just got into the crypto world, and maybe it'll help some of the people that are still trying to get their feet wet. And what's been your experience?
To those, I think, that are new and are just trying to understand what it is, I would maybe stick to, if you're thinking about investing, to the bigger coin, to Bitcoin and Ethereum possibly. Hopefully they don't get sued in the future. I would stick to the basics would be my advice, and definitely reach out to people within your sphere that can maybe shed some light on where you should be investing.
Well, thanks for that. What is going on is a paradox, in my opinion. You've got some of the bigger companies, okay, that are under the radar. They're pushing for legislation so that they can control the market. So they want to pass laws so they will be the only custodians of crypto.
So not only has BlackRock filed for a spot ETF, but so has Chase Bank and a few other places. So it's exactly what you're saying. There are these underlying companies which are part of the legacy system. And what people need to understand is, so Coinbase and all these other companies for years have been trying to push regulation out of the Senate and Congress. They've never done anything other than not give them clarity. It's kind of amazing how out of nowhere you have legacy systems who then approach and say, we want to do this. And all of a sudden, boom, they're up for approval. In my mind, one of the only ways that we're really going to get mass adoption is if you're willing to work with the powers that already be and say, let's work together, let's come together, and let's see how we can benefit each other. I know it's a juxtapose of ideas and business plans, but at the same point, they need each other. So the legacy system needs blockchain and it needs Bitcoin. And as much as Bitcoin is separate and decentralized and it has their own agenda and represents the exact opposite of a legacy system, they have to hit that next layer. In order to penetrate that next layer, you need to work with that next layer. And I think that's probably the path of least resistance to make that happen. I'm not saying it's like the ideal scenario, but it is what it is. And I think that both sides, it would behoove them to work together to do that.
Yeah.
I think it will get regulated to some degree in the future to make that happen. But I think that Bitcoin is going to go all the way. I mean, you have investors like Warren Buffett, who said that it was ridiculous, not verbatim, but he would never invest in any type of crypto at all. And just maybe like 8 months ago, laid out millions and millions and millions of dollars buying crypto. So that says a lot, I think, when Warren Buffett is willing to come in and invest.
I think it says a lot to that point that you were making, that crypto is just going to be a force that has to be reckoned with. It's not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not going anywhere. It's already turned that corner. When I first started learning about Bitcoin and blockchain in 2017, it took me about a day to realize before that light bulb went off. And then I looked around and said, the use case on this is too good. It helps too many people and benefits too many people in the world to go away. And, it started at 0.0009 cents and then got up to $65,000. It's not going away unless you are absolutely convinced that it's worth nothing and has no value. And that's the thing. Value of Bitcoin is subjective. Anything is valuable if you believe it's valuable. Yeah. And that's really all it takes. And you're having a belief system around the world, by the day, switch towards this because it benefits them. We're spoiled in the first world, right? We don't understand that a lot of the world is unbanked. A lot of the world can't get loans. A lot of the world, their currency is manipulated. As I said in our last episode, if the United States prints as much money as we want, we're all good. If Venezuela prints as much money as they want, they're bankrupt.
Right. Well, Charlie Munger, if I remember this quote correctly, said, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is rat poison squared.
Squared.
Right?
Yep.
Well, here's the thing. Every generation poo-poos the new technology that's coming. Every generation doesn't accept the new science that has come up. Galileo, for example, was basically shunned because he said the world wasn't flat, right? Now, whether it's flat or round, that's not the point. I don't want a bunch of trollers here. But the point is that everyone that sees new technology has this time, this epiphany for you. It took a day to realize it's good. But you know what? Most people, it takes a whole lot of bugging. Right, Jennifer? It does. So what happens is if you are open to a new way of doing things that could improve your life. For example, most people today wouldn't even think about not having a cell phone, smartphone, right? Most. Some don't. But most people love the convenience of having a supercomputer in their hand. They feel like a freaking cyborg. So the oracles like Chainlink have revolutionized blockchain. Blockchain is going to be in every business, in every government. It's the most secure way of keeping records, of doing contracts. Eventually, most of the naysayers will just adopt it. Just like the people that in the horse and buggy time.
Yeah. So before you were talking about Chainlinked. The best way for me to explain to people what Chainlinked is, first of all, it's an oracle, okay? So what it does is basically, for all those old folks out there, remember when we had tapes and then everything's got switched over to CDs? And I know I'm outdating myself, but I remember a time when all the world started to listen to all their music on CDs from cassette tapes. There were literally people who started companies that would take people's cassette tapes and then transfer them over onto CDs. That's what Chainlink does for an oracle. It takes real life data that's existing in the current internet right now, and it transfers it over into blockchain. That's the best way I can explain it. So let's take, for example, farmers' drought insurance, okay? Normally a farmer, he takes out drought insurance, to cover in case there's a drought for his crops. So he'll take out that crop insurance consists of a certain criteria that needs to be met for considered a drought. And then once that happens, a series of things and conditions need to be met for you to get paid out. You can literally have that into a smart contract and have it connected to an oracle like Chainlink that is pulling real life weather from satellites. And so let's say that all the stipulations and conditions are met for that drought to happen. It will that Oracle, chain-linked Oracle, will automatically tell the smart contract that the conditions have been met, and then it automatically files the claim and all the paperwork that needs to go in it and automatically pays the farmer. That's something that Chainlink does. That's something that an Oracle does, which is grabs the Web 2 and transfers in the blockchain into Web 3. Yep. Those use case scenarios, when I just explained that to you, how does that not make sense as solving real world problems? It absolutely does.
Well, the best thing I think that an Oracle does is it facilitates as an intermediary to handle even complex transactions. Yep. Like I could see it being set up to handle intercontinental commerce. And that way everyone is on the same page. Everyone decides what to get paid in. Contracts are fulfilled when things go into a port and are dropped off. Payment is made immediately. There's no gap. I think there will be integration, and companies like Chainlink are going to change the face of the world, the way we do commerce. For example, have you ever heard of VET?
VET? Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you know anything about VET?
No.
Okay. So the way that works is, let's say you have a widget that you sell, and you're tired of these Chinese companies ripping you off, okay, because you make the best, the most expensive purse, for example. And so now you want it to be proven that it is authentic, right? Are you familiar with what I'm talking? Okay. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you go into the app and you put your serial number into the app for a particular purse. So now when it sells, then the ownership transfers over to you. So now that commodity is now registered on a blockchain for your purposes.
And what the blockchain does is facilitate it.
Right. And so if you're in a situation where you need to control inventories, they talk about, that was a great example, a widget. But for example, real life right now, there's some French wines. The Chinese were changing out the labels for really expensive French wine and trying to pass it off as, as their wine. So these farmers got together and they put VET so that if we're sitting at a table having, a couple's night out, and we want to make sure that that is some real French wine we're going to drop $300 on, we get our phone app and we check the code, the QR code, and it'll come back and say that it's an authentic wine.
And you can't fake it because it's either on the blockchain or it's not on the blockchain.
Right.
There's no faking that.
There's no faking it, and they won't have privy to the actual code. And then what's cool about that is once it's been used, then it's gone. Mm-hmm. So in other words, it's been verified and sold to a customer, then it gets taken off. And so that even if someone tries to use old codes, they can't. So it will help anyone that is trying to sell something of value to people that are willing to pay for it. And it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. It could be a minor thing. It could be commerce done on Amazon right now, or TikTok is getting involved with selling things online. So I'm sure Shorts will be selling things online. And so they will need a way to verify their product as genuine and authentic.
Yep.
So I think companies like VeChain are going to change the world. All right. Coupled with Chainlink, coupled with blockchain, it's going to be revolutionary.
There are lots of different use cases, and that's one of the main ones, which is it's digital authentication is what it is. It's not only digital authentication, but you're able to facilitate it at ease, at a whim, with all the privy information you need because of blockchain. Another example, blockchain, Walmart gets their produce from say 100 different farms throughout the United States. If you have E. coli break out in, say, your broccoli, because it's stored on blockchain and tracked on blockchain, the second that there's a report of that, you're able to find out what farm it came from and stop it immediately and cut off that supply chain. You don't have to go investigate what farm it is, who did it, where did it come from, at what point. You know exactly pinpoint of the day, time, and farm that it came from, period.
When we get to a position where you're in this new metaverse, this new world that is on its way with Web3, this new world, this metaverse world that's coming, where Web3 is defined by being able to purchase and being able to sell and do a lot of things online with Web3. With these new blockchain technologies that are here and are coming, we're going to be able to have commerce on steroids. And I think the bankers understand that they can't stop this technology. They just need to control it. They need to own it. And I go back to Silvergate because they bought that technology, SIN, okay? And that technology was a 24-hour service, 365 days a year for the exchanges to be liquid. And they picked it up for a song from a bankruptcy proceedings because they were made by the FDIC to go insolvent because allegedly they didn't have enough money to cover their potential run. Yet you see that 168 other banks have the same problem, yet they're still allowed to stay in business. But what did this bank have over the other ones? And I'll tell you, they had relationships with exchanges. They had this proprietary method to fund and to work with them. So the reason I bring that up is because if you look at this in the grand scheme of things, you see that there's an unseen hand that is trying to control what it is to be in a digital space.
First, they laugh at you, then they criticize you, then they fear you, and then they try to fight you. Right now, they're coming after the fighting part. And that's more than evident by moves like you said, where they're conveniently going after some banks and conveniently not going after other banks. They're conveniently not giving clarity and regulation to certain exchanges that already had a leg up on everyone. And they're clearly giving that regulation to other exchanges or other people coming up like BlackRock. So when you make conscious decisions, why would you deny somebody who's been doing a certain business for 7 or 8 years, but deny them, but give approval to somebody who is just starting to get into that game? It doesn't make any sense. First of all, you're not going to have people who really understand that space heading up those departments. They're heading up the people who've been doing it for 7, 8, 9 years. So that doesn't make any sense. But it's the government's way, the legacy system's way of saying, now we can't laugh at you anymore. Now we can't make fun of you anymore. Now we're going to fight you. Why? Because we know it's real. We know it's turned the channel. We know it's turned the corner, and we know it's not going anywhere. So this is what we need to do. This is our way to control it. And we need to step in now to try to get control, because the next leg up, we're done. We're not going to be able to get any control on it.
We're going to have a scenario where it's going to work. But do you guys understand how BlackRock works? Do you guys understand the inner workings? This is fun. The way BlackRock works, they have an AI, and then they call it Aladdin. And it's allowed investors to be able to make all kinds of money. Okay. And so what's happened is that these investors have become more and more reliant on this particular supercomputer, super AI, to do the investing for them or with them. And so as BlackRock grew and is growing, what's happened is, and people don't understand this, and this is where it gets kind of spooky, is they have gotten retirees money, 401ks and the like, and they have bought into most of the infrastructure, most of the utilities. And so they have become major shareholders worldwide. And what that means is to us in crypto is that they have a say in just about every single industry. And they're making money on every single industry. Where it gets kind of spooky is that if you do an analysis on a digital board, and you see all of the companies that they own, what they do own is shares, which they buy as many as they can to control the voting stock.
So they own enough to have a say.
Well, they own enough to be able to vote any way they want.
Yep.
So where it gets scary is here are all these vanguards and all these buying into these BlackRock ETFs and buying and just trying to stay above the curve because of inflation. So they need to make a good profit. So they're buying into these BlackRock directed investments that they in turn end up controlling most of the voting stock. Where crypto is, it's the antithesis of that idea. See, the idea of creating monopolies, we frown on. We don't allow it. Antitrust, the whole bit. But it's not against the law for you to own enough stock where you're controlling the voting. Sure, they don't own the company per se. They don't own the municipal per se. But they own enough voting shares so they can get pretty much anything they want done. That being said, where I'm going with this is with crypto, you don't have to rely on anybody. You don't have to worry that it's being manipulated by these genius, AIs that are taking over all of these voting stocks. And so now you can do peer-to-peer and you can use these oracles to be able to do commerce within a scope. In other words, directly peer-to-peer, or you could do it in any facet you choose to do it. What say you?
Basically, but with crypto, it just, like how you were mentioning with the BlackRock, they have so much say, because they're a part of so many, like they're shareholders in a lot of companies. But with crypto, it's different that way, that they don't have that, right?
Unless it's a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, which I know some people in the blockchain Web3 space, and every time you mention DAO, they start laughing. I know a lot of people in the Web3 blockchain space, and the only thing I can really say about that is when you mention DAOs are decentralized autonomous organizations, which are basically companies, and their rules and regulations and how it's going to be run can all be set up into computer code. So that when people are voting, it's like anything. Whoever has a majority share gets the most votes. And they laugh because they say, well, that exists in blockchain and Web3. They just do it in a form of a DAO. Because if you look at any, like some of the most prominent DAOs that do exist right now, there's really only a handful of people that own the most of it, therefore have the most amount of votes and will ultimately have the same amount of say on it. That still very much does run the risk of the same thing. It just... the decentralization and opening it up into the entire world and make it accessible for the entire world to have a say makes it a lot more palatable in my mind. BlackRock, it costs them a lot of money to buy a lot of shares to have a lot of say in a certain company. While there's many DAOs that can be formed out there for many different situations and many different businesses or side businesses, where now you can be sitting in a hut in Africa. As long as you have access to a cell phone and you have some cryptocurrency in there, you can participate in a DAO, or you can now belong to part of a DAO, which runs a company or owns a company. How are you going to do that at any sort of effective role if you're not BlackRock in the Web3 space? So I'm not saying that you're going to be able to buy enough tokens in that DAO to make a huge decision, but it's the accessibility of it and the accessibility of a lot more people being able to enter into that race makes it a lot more profitable, makes it a lot more efficient in my mind.
The honesty effect is what I always look at when I talk about crypto. And right now that's been called into question with a lot of these pump and dump schemes and these rug pulls. I am not an advocate on that at all. Matter of fact, I'm more of a Bitcoin maximalist than anything else. Although I do appreciate some of the advances that are coming forward. ADA, VET, Chainlink, many more. Litecoin. I had to throw that in there for you. So
My boys.
I see the possibilities with all this. Now, with a DAO, like you're saying, there's still risk of majority,
Even though you're talking about blockchain and cryptocurrency, it's very listen, humans being humans are still going to be humans being humans. Okay. So market manipulation, if there's somebody who can make $1 off that, they're going to. All I'm saying is, what's the difference between that and any financial market that already exists? What was it? Facebook was down 75, 80% last year. Google was down 30%, 40%. You're telling me that Facebook, a Fortune 500 company, was down 80% in a year, but there's market manipulation in crypto? Bitcoin goes down 75, 80%. The world's coming to an end and there's no intrinsic value behind it. Facebook goes down 80%. It's just markets.
And I agree with you. As soon as Bitcoin shows that it has mass adoption, then there's going to be a lot more stability. Companies like Facebook, for example, they actually just bought ChatGPT, right? You can now start seeing it on the Edge platform. You're starting to see that they're going to use it more and more. And they spent a sick amount of money to be able to buy into Facebook. You got Google that's doing the same thing. I mean, you got to understand, Google has a supercomputer, right? One of the few that are out there. They're called quantum computers. Right? And they are working towards another type of AI that may even be better than what they came up with now. That's not going anywhere. And so they're spending money like Facebook spent a lot of money to go into the metaverse. Now, it hasn't paid off yet, but it may. So I agree with what you're saying 100%. And I don't think you can expect a commodity like a Bitcoin to be able to be steady at this stage of the game.
I 100% agree. The problem with Bitcoin is that you're dealing with a currency. So people have a problem when you have a currency that fluctuates that much. So I get that, okay? But it's like you said, it's because of the stage or the phase that it's at. Mass adoption will take care of that very, very quickly. It'll help stable out the market. As far as these other coins, as far as I'm concerned, they're all price discovery. What they're worth, what they're not worth. First of all, if they're worth something, they'll be around. But 99% of them won't be around. And the ones that do exist, or the ones that will exist or continue on versus the ones that don't anymore, it's simply price discovery mode right now. People are figuring out what it is worth. And obviously, the more that something is adopted, the more it's going to be worth because the more it's going to be used. But Bitcoin, why people have such a problem with Bitcoin and say, well, it's so manipulated. How can it be a currency that's manipulated? It's because of the early stages that it's at. And if you took that manipulation, anything else that didn't have to do with currency, you probably wouldn't have a problem with it.
And I agree with that. So at the end, you had mentioned that you work with a couple of coins and all that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do with cryptocurrency?
Well, right now I'm really into like solo NFTs. So it's basically just finding and researching as many projects as you can, being a part of as many Discords as you can. It is kind of like a full-time job. But the one thing I like about solo NFTs is that there can be so much utility behind it. And I also like the art factor. That's pretty nice. But the thing is also, when you get into NFTs, there's a lot of ways you can look at it. You can look at it with getting in early and selling quickly, making a quick buck, or really being a part of a community.
What do you look for specifically when you're spending, say you're going to take a day and you're going to look at different NFTs because you want to buy a new one or invest in something, and you just want to see what's going on. What do you specifically look for? Like, what's your thought process as you're going through it?
Well, one is community.
Okay.
And the people that are moderating, how active the chat is, and their plan of action. You know, does the NFT or the project have utility? What are they trying to do? What are the backgrounds of the people that are making this? Because there's so many rugs all the time.
So you're checking to see if the people behind it are legit in their past projects.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then also just like the sense of community, because I personally feel like if there's no sense of community, people who don't find value in the project, it's pointless. Why are you getting involved? It's kind of like, going back to purses, like Louis Vuitton, people find value in the brand, even though it's just a purse.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I look for when I'm looking at projects.
Okay.
I got it. All right. Well, Brett, we're going to give you the last word. I mean, do you have anything to?
No, man. Just, I love all the comments everyone's been making on my Instagram reels. I love everyone. Blockchain and crypto, despite being around for 10 years, despite going from nothing to something, it's still very, very new. And as much as it benefits the world, and all three of us in this room get it, and we connect the dots instantly, a lot of people aren't there yet. And it's going to take something to the point where they don't even know that they're doing it for it to happen. Just like a cell phone, right? You see a farmer driving in his tractor plowing crops, and he's on his cell phone doing business, whatever it is. Does he know all the computer protocols that are happening in his cell phone for him to use it and do business? No, it doesn't matter, because all he knows is what it's used for and how it solves and uses it in his real life. That's all that matters. And that's what crypto is going to have to get to the point, and blockchain to the point, where people know it, but they don't really know it, right? So give you an example, MetaKeep, a guy that I know, created a company called MetaKeep. What they do is they're a seamless wallet. So literally all the steps that are involved right now to set up a crypto wallet, all you have to do is register your email and you're set up. Your secret seed, your password, everything. It's all stored separately, but regardless, all you have to do to get involved and to start storing crypto and have your own crypto wallet is basically provide your email address. That's it. So when you invent stuff like that, that's so seamless, all the work that needs to be done is still there, but it's hidden in the back end. So you don't know that. That's what it's going to take.
I'll leave you guys with this. The danger that we have by ignoring crypto, by allowing it to be taken offshore, because these special interest groups are either scared of it or want to own it on the cheap. It's going to stifle the growth, because a lot of the innovation comes from the U.S. So I believe that if they mess with it right now, it's still in an adolescent stage, we're going to do globally big harm, because with what is the potential of crypto, it is nothing compared to what it will be in a few years. I hope that they don't succeed in this weird plan that it's being hatched right now.
The United States is playing a game that we will not win. Why? Because we're going against the rest of the world. And you can be the most badass UFC fighter in the world, but if you have 50 guys jumping you at once, you're not winning. So that's the way that I look at it, which is it doesn't matter if we get on board or doesn't get on board. The only way that matters is being detrimental to the United States. But as far as the world's concerned, they don't care. They're embracing it, and they're well on their way to embracing it. So to me, you just got to apply common sense. And let's look at it this way. Who is in a better situation in life right now? Somebody who bought Bitcoin when it was $1, or somebody who bought Bitcoin when it was 20,000? Tell me, who's in a better position? Now, $20,000, if it goes to $1 million someday, is still a good entry point. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, who overall is in a better position? Somebody who got into Bitcoin early when it was $1, or somebody who got into Bitcoin when it was $20,000? And that's the way that our mentality needs to be with approaching crypto and regulation.
Well, thanks for coming on Urban Legend Crypto. Have a wonderful rest of your day.